Hey, hey.
Hello.
Go
Who's
ahead.
talking here?
Go ahead. I think you're live. The mics are all hot.
Yeah, yeah, man. It's great to be here. It's Wednesday night. It is the Dev Talk Show, and we're excited to be here on another fun Wednesday night. And we see all three of us are here tonight, which is great. We haven't seen Rich in a while, and I'm personally super stoked that Rich is hanging out with us tonight, having some fun. We're gonna chill out, and we're gonna talk about all kinds of cool stuff. How's it, Rich? How are you?
I'm doing well, thanks. It's been a couple months or so since I've been around, but always been watching in the background. But things have just been crazy busy at work, and it's been taking up a lot of times. But it's good to have a night free where I can come out and hang out with you guys again. So I missed it.
Cool. Awesome.
Yeah, no, it's great, and it's hard, right? I mean, let's face it. We know that doing this stuff on a regular basis is like it's rough. I mean, it seems easy. It's not that easy. I mean, it's not that hard. I guess let's be fair, right? It's not that
Make
hard.
it look easy.
But it's not consuming. It's a commitment, is what it is. Like it's a commitment to to your nights and stuff like that. Since you haven't been here as much the last couple of weeks, Chris has totally stepped up and doing all the sort of producing behind the scenes with the audio and the automation stuff like that. And I think we had a nice, really smooth start. Chris, how you doing?
Pretty good. Smooth start, except for me forgetting that you were in the center. Other than that, I was super excited. Like, I hit my change scene button and my unmute mics button, which is not, so no, for those of you automation folks out there, it is not automated to the point that, I push one button and then forget about it, but it's getting closer. So somebody asked in the chat about some new headphones.
Yeah, maybe me. I've been wearing these earbuds, and I've really been liking them. These are Samsung Galaxy Buds, they're called.
Okay.
And really comfortable. The only thing I don't like about them, they don't have those little pegs that a lot of them have, right? Like the stalks or sticks. So when I take them in and out, it's almost impossible not to hit it. And if you tap it, it does stuff. Whatever, right?
Oh, really?
Yeah. Like it'll start playing whatever I have paused or something weird like that. But I liked it. I find those over the ear things were really like too much pressure around my head. Like I got a big head, I guess. I don't know.
Now, because I have a pair of them as well. I have a pair of Bose, and I also have a pair of Surface headphones. But in general, I always see a bit of a delay on the Bluetooth side, and I don't know if you see that at all.
I think there's a little bit of a delay. It doesn't seem to be too bad, but it's definitely, a little bit.
I know for me, it's enough that I have speakers here in front of me and I have a Bluetooth in the kitchen. And if I have them both going, there's like a little bit of a syncopated beat going on between all those sources.
Oh, check this out. Try Goofy. Hello, by the way. It's because most laptops are Bluetooth 4, I assume that means, and headphones are way better with Bluetooth 5, right? So the machines aren't caught up to the technology, I guess, of the things. And maybe phones, which are probably modern, probably are maybe Bluetooth 5. If we got a new phone. I got a new phone recently too, by the way. I'm a Samsung guy. Right? I got the Galaxy S21. This thing. What a great screen this thing has. It's like the richness of the screen. What do you got? Same one?
Same one. I got it back in, I guess, January when they released it.
Now, yeah, did you get the standard or the ultra or the plus?
I got the ultra. I went all out. It was like 3 years since I bought a phone, and it was time. So
you have 4 of these. Show everybody yours, right? 4 cameras?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. See, that's cool. 5 cameras. Yeah.
And there's like a panoramic where it's 100 megapixels, and then there's different macro lenses and stuff like that. But it's nice. Takes great pictures.
Oh God! But like when I now we're getting all sidetracked here, but who cares, right? When
we're just talking.
Like at night, what I do is because the TV in my room is large, right? And a lot of times at night, I like to get in bed and watch TV. So quite frankly, I put Hulu on my phone. I prop it up on my nightstand and I look over it, and it's so rich. Like the video quality when you're watching it is just wow. It's like, oh, it's amazing. And I think you ever think back to like you can watch a video on a phone this size.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was a kid, I had a TV that was 15 inches, and it was like blurry, like the resolution difference between them. It's like funny.
Yeah, for that size. I remember that's where I was going. Try to give you the Sony Watchman, right? The little 5-inch screen. So kind of not much bigger, because that's 5 and change, almost 6, and the quality on it is like ridiculous.
Yeah.
So we were talking about
anyway. I've been using these earbuds and pretty happy with that. Like a 2-inch screen took a minute. Yeah, right.
I had one of those, and it was analog and worked off of an antenna. And so I got one. I mean, it was like a birthday, like a Christmas present when I was like a teenager or something. But the person who got the most value out of it was my dad. He enjoyed taking it on camping trips. And depending on where we camped in Southern California, you could actually get a station or two. Sometimes you couldn't. It would be like, oh, well, not this trip. But boy, thinking about rabbit ears and those are it was a long time ago when we said, oh, am I getting the TV clear tonight? Like, we all have cable and streaming now. So, oh, well. But, we're talking about new hardware.
Holding the antennas, right?
Yeah. And you have new headphones. I think on this show, the very famous like squeaky chair of mine, right? You guys have heard it. With it squeak, 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 squeak. That squeaky chair's over there.
Oh, wow.
It's not the chair that I'm in. I finally broke down and got a new chair. And I got a Secret Lab. I forget what they're called. Omega.
Oh, yeah, I saw the logo back there.
Yeah. I think the Omega is the one for small people. On the Secret Lab site, they actually do recommend heights, and like this was the smallest one, and it got here in like 3 days. I was super impressed. I think I ordered it on a Thursday, and it showed up Sunday. And
nice.
And not nobody paid me to say this, or it's not sponsored or anything, but they definitely, it was a real premium experience. Like, you open the box, and the top, there's a piece of cardboard that's the first thing you pull out, and it's full color photo print of every step. It included the tools that you needed, but when I say included the tools, there's an Allen wrench, and you need an Allen wrench, except that they have and then you also need something that's totally theirs, totally their thing. It's nothing I've ever. They even gave it a name, like an alien wrench, and then you needed a Phillips, and so they have the bits, but the bits are magnetic and go into a. I mean, you've all seen the changeable like screwdrivers. Yeah, it goes into a driver that they supplied. And the driver was actually a nice flat handle, because when you turn an Allen wrench, getting torque on it can be kind of painful. Well, you put these bits for these special wrenches in, and now you got this really nice flat handle, and it was whoosh, whoosh. I was like, wow, this is a great experience. Yeah, so Try Goofy says got a Secret Lab Titan, and I felt like it was a premium build experience. Probably took a half an hour at the most. So I just think the fact that it's in the box.
Just the more tools.
I think the fact that was in the box.
It is a nice experience.
Right.
Yeah. Ancient Coder's here. Chops is here. Chops says Rich is back. How about Chops is back? Hello, Chops, right? And we're having some fun tonight. Hanging out, reminiscing, and just kind of, we could just go on and on about these things. But, you mentioned something interesting. You think about, like, you were talking about the unboxing experience, right? That's a new thing, like the unboxing experience, okay? Where, like, from the moment you get that box, they want you immersed in the experience, right? Some companies really do a lot to make the unboxing experience something impressive, right? Where, like, the box is nice and it's smooth, and they really think about it, as opposed to just throwing something into some cardboard with some styrofoam peanuts. That's an interesting thing. I mean, people how many times have we watched unboxing videos? People make videos of themselves unboxing things, and then you take it to the next level with good instructions, and now supplying tools in the bag and stuff like that, and it's really cool, right?
Yeah, yeah.
It is all about that customer experience. If Chris had an awesome experience getting that chair, we talk about it here, and now all of a sudden it's like, well, and other people commenting about it as well. That experience goes a long way towards selling your product as well. I sometimes I look at it and think that's so much material in there. I get it. It looks nice. It's cool, but that's a lot of waste.
Oh, there's definitely.
Well,
I mean, in order to keep the thing so that it's pristine coming out of there and not scratched up or dented or whatever, there was an awful lot of styrofoam. But I don't know. Maybe that's.
But sometimes that's needed, I think. Like, I think it's fair when, like you said, you don't want it damaged when it gets to you. Now, the other day, I got a box. My hands are wider than here, let's see. Like, the box was at least, 16 inches, like one of these Amazon boxes with the air pocket things in it. And what came out of it, I'm not kidding, was, I'm trying to get my hand there. That was that big, like it was inside the thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it was this little plant, actually. I'll tell you this little story here. It was an air plant, they call it. So it's supposed to be like super easy to maintain, okay? Because you don't have to water it all the time. Now, tell me what you think of this, okay? And it's really cool looking. Comes in a little wooden stand, and it's just this plant, and you put it on. There's no dirt, there's no water. You just put it on this little wooden pedestal. You leave it on your desk, and you leave it in the sunlight. I thought, well, this is great. This is a plant I can dig this. Then I read the instructions, and it says, soak it in water. And I'm thinking, okay, yeah, soak it in the water, and then put it back in the thing. Soak it in the water for 15 minutes, and then let it air dry for 45 minutes once a week. And I thought, that's like harder than a regular plant. Like this isn't easy. It was really cool looking. But I don't know if I qualify that as like low maintenance. Like most plants, you walk around with a cup of water once a week. This thing, I got to take it out, move it around. I don't know. It just,
How long have you had it?
It's still alive. I've had it 2 weeks,
Okay, that's what we're looking to see. How long is this plant gonna last? So every time, new segment, how's Andy's plant?
Yeah, that could be something. And it's funny because I see Ancient Coder asked, "What's the topic this evening?" Yeah, what's the topic this evening? I don't know. The topic, I think, we're just hanging out to some degree. We're talking about like technology. We have some ideas to talk. This isn't a like we're trying something sort of different here, which is to say like it's almost like we're hanging out show, and we've got some things we want to talk about, what we're all interested in, what kind of technology we're following these days, and what we're excited about, and we want to hear from the audience about that as well, right? But we're just kind of like having conversation. I mean, you missed it in the pre-show before while Chris was fine-tuning everything and we were off the air. Rich and I were just talking about the band Rush and watching like their documentaries that are on the internet and interviews and things like that, because we're both Rush geeks. So well, there's a question here, Chris. I don't know if you saw that.
Yep.
What are our thoughts on .NET 6?
I certainly.
And then Try Goofy says, yeah. Chops is with us on Rush. So Ancient Coder wants to know, like, what are our thoughts on .NET 6? Someone just, I see, I'm looking at multiple places here. Mm-hmm. .NET 6, I'm not like, I'll speak for myself. I'm not unexcited about it, but I was excited for .NET 5. Like, .NET 5 was a big deal, right?
Yeah.
.NET 6 is like .NET 6, I guess, right? Like, I think there's some good stuff in there. Off the top of my head, I'm trying to remember what's even in there.
Well, I think that's where we start to get to where Maui comes together, right? That new UI. We get Xamarin included in there as well. So there's that great unification that is, or the rest of the unification that's coming.
Yeah, there's a lot of pieces coming together, right? And the problem is it becomes, once again, it becomes product, like which product is what, but between .NET MAUI and WinUI, and then there can be some confusion over what is what and which is which, and but that's not a bad segue. I didn't mention this to the guys, but that's not a bad segue for something that I thought we might get to a little bit later. If you're familiar with the ASP.NET Community Stand-Up, this week, in fact yesterday, there was a show on minimal APIs. And this is something David Fowler has been tweeting about for a little while. It requires some new language features that will be in C# 10 that I can't even yet describe for you what they are. We haven't done any kind of C# 10 preview show, and I actually have not yet gone to look at those features. I know of one specifically that I think would lead to an interesting show called now we have 4 or more ways to create strings in C#. But this is basically the gist of it. And this isn't the first time that we've seen in the .NET space an attempt to minimize the ceremony, right? So if we take a quick peek at this code here, this is from a tweet from David Fowler, where he basically said this is what the future, and I should be very careful. His tweet says this is what it will look like in the future, but you have to read the previous sentence. Want to throw together a quick web application. Immediately the questions started coming like, oh my God, what's happening to the rest of it? Nothing. You want to use MVC? Use MVC. You want to use Razor Pages? Use Razor. Do whatever you want. But the idea here is now you see top level statements are in here, right? Because no main, no program class, none of that. And this is a fully functioning web application that you can basically get the endpoint at root, and it'll return a dog, and dog is using the new record type, right? So that's cool. And it's not about keeping up with anything or keeping up. I mean, if some people want this experience. Way back in the framework days, when a lot of people may or may not know, Web API could be self-hosted. You didn't have to host it on IIS. You could host it in your own application. I enjoyed doing that for some like kind of funky fun stuff. And there was a cool web framework called Nancy, which was actually influenced by Sinatra, which was a web framework for another programming language. But they liked the idea of web application that fits in a tweet. I mean, and this is a picture, but the Nancy team used to tweet out fully functioning web application in 144 characters or 140 or whatever Twitter is. I don't remember what used to be. And so there are other languages that have similar type looks. If you squint at Flask in Python, you can get something that looks like this. If you're writing APIs in Go, it kind of looks like this. So I'm not trying to say it's the same. Nobody tell me, oh my God, it's not identical, but it's the idea of like, just get to what you want to do without like, a controller and a class and then some attributes and then routing and blah and blah. So this will be available in .NET 6. So am I answering the question directly? What do I think about it? Well, I don't really know enough, but I'm kind of interested to play with this stuff.
Yeah.
Maybe a microservice that fits in a tweet. So.
Yeah, no, that's, and I'm sure it's one of the things that, I had a short list of things that we make sure we talk about here, but, obviously .NET 6 and some of the great things that are coming out probably at the end of the month when we get to build, which is, I think, the 25th to the 27th of May. So just a couple of weeks away from now. And I did post that video that you shared or that you mentioned, Chris, in the chat. Just don't go watch it until after we're done.
Okay. Yeah. So the question,
there's a question. Everybody watching this.
There's a question: how does it play with Azure Functions? And I think the reality is that this is preview code. So who knows?
It's a good question.
And I think the other thing that we know about Functions is that Functions is currently using Core 3.1.
I believe there's that's what I'm looking up now, but I'm pretty sure that there is a 5 that's in preview. If it's not completely there yet. Yeah,
I mean, I have no idea. Like the Azure, I just think this is just a tweet from one engineer on the team that I thought was pretty cool, And I said, yeah, I'm interested. Tell me more, right? And maybe, in fact, if I know David Fowler, he's probably looking to get rid of this line here, the var app equals web application dot create. If I know him, he probably wants that to go away. So I know that there's some tweets out there about making project files go away if you don't need them. That doesn't mean that an enterprise application built by a team of 12 or 15 people doesn't need that kind of, management. I don't know what you'd call it, but sometimes you need the project management.
Sometimes you need that
and
structure, maybe.
Yeah, and sometimes you want to, be friendly to beginners or single person teams that want to just get something in a container really quick. I mean, I think there's a lot of things to serve.
I think it's fair. I turned around. I turned away from the chat for a couple minutes, and I looked back, and there's all these chat messages in here. Halcyon.
Yeah.
Friend of the show. I don't know if you noticed that one. A whole bunch of stuff in here. And Try Goofy says .NET 10. What's .NET 10? I never heard of .NET 10. Did I miss something?
I don't know about 10 now, but
I don't know if there is a .NET 10. Maybe did you say something? I don't.
If the roadmap goes the way it is, then I guess we can even figure out what year it is, right? Because this should be 6. So 7, 8, 9, 10. Just count the years out. I guess that's 2024. Is that right? That's if this, we'll see. The November release schedule.
Hey, I want to get something in here early on the show before I forget, if you guys don't mind. Last Saturday, I was on a show with David McCarter. He does this Rockin' the Code World thing, and he does it on the C# Corner channels. So they do a lot of stuff on Facebook Live, but they, other things. Anyway, he brought up a point that I wanted to remember to mention here, which is that, we're developers, right? We're all software developers. And here in America, we're really lucky these days. And a lot of our friends, our software developer, compatriots, if that's the right word, in India are really, really struggling right now. The COVID situation is completely out of hand in India. And, he started off his show, making a impassioned plea. I thought he did a really nice job about it, starting off this show. And what I didn't know until I was on the show when I was live with him is that C# Corner, our friends at C# Corner, like Mahesh Chand, who's been on this show, right? And a friend of our local community, he runs C# Corner. They are doing a fundraiser, for COVID in India, because you can't get like oxygen and things like that. I mean, there's like a lot of problems. I'm not the most articulate at being, explaining what the situation is there, and this is not my strength. But what I want to show you is actually I was going to share my screen. I've got a screen up here, if you don't mind, Chris. If you want to go to my, I have to share. Can I share?
I think when you share, it pops over top, but we're about to find out. If not, I will.
But let me just. I just want to make sure I share the right screen. Start sharing, and then I'll bring up the web page. Sorry, this web page. So what you can do is you can go to this Eventbrite site where I think it's a kind of a good way to quickly get up a fundraiser, right? Maybe it's not the most ideal thing in the world, but thinking about, I think my video is like messed up on the screen here.
Right. Yeah, I see that. Don't worry about it.
Help.
It seemed to have changed your transform when we...
Yeah, you can put it back the other way. It doesn't matter because now you can't see the screen at all. But if you go to this Eventbrite, and I can post let me post this into the chat. This is the fundraiser. And they can, you can go in here and you can like sort of buy tickets, so to speak. And you can see, you can spend, these are just recommendations, $10 for an oxygen can, help someone with food or an oxygen cylinder, or you can just make a flat out donation, right? And that's what I did, honestly. I appreciated that Mahesh was putting this together. A lot of C# Corner audience is in India, right? But we all work with people from all around the world, and quite frankly, in our industry, India is a pretty big deal, right? And they're really struggling. I mean, it's brutal over there. So I just wanted to say, hey, if you can help out in any way, doesn't have to be with this C# Corner fundraiser. You know, it doesn't really matter how. But think about the fact that we're like coming out of it here in the U.S. At least that's my feeling. I don't know about you guys, but I feel like we're almost like done. I'm vaccinated. I don't know about you guys, but it's not so simple in the rest of the world. I just wanted to take a couple minutes out and talk about that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you said, was there, and you got that link up there? Okay.
I did post the link
chat.
In the thing, so you can kill my screen if you want. It's fine, because looks like you got it fixed anyway now. I see my video.
Yeah, but I think when you, I'll be curious what happens when you stop sharing.
Oh, I know what it is. It's that lock thing. Let me see.
There's something. There was some setting that I needed to do that locks the transform.
Yeah, I know what it is too. I can tell you later.
See that? Interesting.
Well, hang on. Now I stopped
bounds.
sharing. Inner bounds, exactly. I should have. Now you're stuck on my Skype screen in there, looking kind of crazy. Oh, am I still sharing? I thought I stopped sharing. Stop sharing. There we go.
Yeah, look at that. Huh. So there's something that I do, right? That that I'll have to get right another time.
But let's get back to tech, right? I don't want to be like too much of a downer talking about negative topics there, but
it's
important to bring up.
Yeah, no, it's I'm glad you did. It's one of those things, we've been dealing with the pandemic on various levels for the last 14, 15 months at this point. And, while we hit, some pretty serious highs as far as, daily number of people being positive and situations in hospitals, it's nowhere near what it sounds like is going on in India at this point. So definitely thoughts and prayers out to everybody out there. And if there's anything you can do to help, certainly the link that Andy shared would be would certainly go a long way to helping them get back to normal, as we're starting to do here as well.
Thanks, Rich. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So back to technology and stuff, right?
And you've been on C# Corner recently, right? Like you said, that's his site.
Well, yeah, I was on.
But not just to talk other topics too. You've been on a couple times recently.
I have been on a couple times lately. So Mahesh does this really good show that I like. It's called the Growth Mindset Show, and he does that one, and I've been on that I think twice. And then I was on David McCarter's show. Oh, here's me. I was on David McCarter's show just this past, maybe it was a week ago Saturday already. It's all a blur to me. I can't even tell you what day it was.
No, what day is it?
And we talked about code quality. Yeah, that's an old picture of me too, huh? My round glasses. And I think I definitely have more hair too.
Hair.
It's may not be obvious to you, but I can tell there's more hair in that photo than there is now, and there ain't much in that photo. So, yeah, they're producing a lot of content lately. That's a website that's been around. Gosh, when I was starting out as a C# developer, I remember getting help from that website. That's been around a long time, and they've made a lot of progress on that site too. It's actually really, really helpful these days. So yeah, that's fun. Anyway, we're talking about things that were interesting to us, right? And then the question of .NET 6 came up, I guess.
Yeah.
Oh, I see. Maybe one of you guys put it. We're talking about C# 10, not .NET 10.
Yeah, there will be a C# 10 this fall. Although I have not looked into what's being added or anything like that. Although the only thing that I've heard, and again, I've heard so little, is that there's apparently... You remember XML Literals in VB? It was a way... It was a way to basically just plant XML right in the source code, indentation and line spacing at all. For a long time, C# folks were looking for some way to kind of splat pre-formatted code into the code, and I believe a feature is coming that basically would let you create strings that way. But I counted in my head and said, boy, that's like the fourth way to create strings that I can think of. Like we have we have string literals with the @ and we have interpolated strings with the $, and now these are like these backtick strings, which it's funny. Like, how many ways do we need to declare strings?
Yeah. And when you get to that point, like you mentioned something earlier though, when you were talking about different ways to write code. Some people might like this minimalist format where you don't have a lot of ceremony and things like that. Some people might not.
Right.
So you could apply that same mindset to, well, there's 4 different ways to format a string, and you could choose the one you like. But other people would say, oh, now it's just a complicated language, right? And there's always going to be that debate, and like which of those is better. I guess it's always been the sort of Microsoft way to have like 12 different ways to do things. And sometimes I think that hurts. Sometimes I think that helps. I mean, I've had some devices where, whether it was devices or software, where I'm like, I can't do what I want to do with this. That's sort of why I don't really like iPhones as much as I like Android phones. Like, I feel like I can do what I want to do with this thing. I can screw it up, but I can, like, I kind of like that flexibility to have options and ways to do things. CTI Geek is making some comments about, Try Goofy says so many languages are getting like that. Yeah, I guess as they get more mature, like this is what would you call it? Like a blessing and a curse. Like C# is a mature language, right? And
20 years, right?
You look at the features that it has. I mean, it is feature rich, right? But on the other hand, you end up with some multiple ways of doing things or some confusing things, and so.
And then you have a commitment to backward compatibility. So the old ways have to keep working. And that can be frustrating. Right. Strings is one thing, but like if I asked you today, how do I write code that calls like some back-end web API? You might say, I'm not trying to put you on the spot. You might say, I'll create an HTTP client. In fact, I might use the HTTP client factory to do it for me. But there are at least 2 other ways in the history of the framework that if you just happen to search wrong that day, you might run across web request and you might use it.
Yeah.
And how do you know unless you lived it? And I find that frustrating as somebody who mentors and helps and tries to improve what other developers either at work or here on this show or in the community are doing. And, you see people get discouraged and I can't help but feel for them and say like, yeah, it is discouraging. Don't feel bad. I mean, the only reason I know is because I lived through all of it. That's not a great reason to know. Like that doesn't make it better. It just means that
definitely
it's just they're called scars, right? That's what it is. So
exactly, yeah. When you've been doing this long enough, you've built up that thick skin, and you know where the pain points are.
Yeah, I mean, like I think Halcyon is pointing out some COM interfaces. Are you IXML HTTP request 2? I mean,
wasn't that the old like what was that? Was scripting, right? That was there was a when we used to do the old chat and web calls. I think that's what you used to make that kind of a request. But yeah, that's going back a ways.
I mean, so yeah, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, what's interesting is we're talking about, there's some C# 10 kind of things, like what's coming out in C# 10. And what's shocking to me, although I guess this is just the way my career has gone, is that, and you guys know me a long time in this space where like I've been like a sort of one of the C# guys in the community, like talking about language things, I think. I had C# and Up, event and things like that, all thinking about the, progress. Mm-hmm. And these days I get less excited hearing about like language features. Mm-hmm. And I think I get more excited about frameworky kind of stuff than I do about language features. Like, there's a new way to declare a variable, or, like you can use new instead of having to say new foo, you can just say new, like, mm-hmm. I don't know. I get less excited about that. and more excited about, sort of like newer like something bigger, like technology or even frameworks and things like that. I don't know. It's just maybe what's important to me nowadays. And it's interesting because CTI Geek said, hated VAR at first, and now CTI Geek says they love it. Yeah, exactly. I mean, and there's no really right or wrong with some of those things, I think, right? But I've been looking at like Blazor as something that's pretty exciting, right? Like that's a framework. That's more than just the language, right? Like using Azure and things like that, right? And like these new platforms and things like that. I guess because maybe I sit in more of an architect role these days, certainly more. I don't write a lot of, line by line code these days. I don't know about you guys. But I think a lot about, technology and platforms and frameworks and stuff like that these days.
So you're talking about those kind of, so let me think of the right, I had a question and then you went off in a slightly different direction.
I mentioned like Blazor. I was talking about like that being exciting, and I went all over the place. I know, that's why I stopped talking.
No, that's it. But the Blazor part's pretty good because you've been focusing on building a Blazor app in your personal stream, your Swami streams.
Swami streams, yeah. Twitch.tv/Swami streams.
I see.
Not sponsored.
I can always take up for a plug easily, right?
Not a sponsor.
not
a sponsor. We're affiliated though, right? We're a friend of the show.
Exactly.
The thing about Blazor, so where this is coming from with me personally from Blazor, I remember, and I've said this on the show before, I remember being in the room. I say like in the room, Chris was probably sitting next to me at the time, if I wouldn't be surprised. We were on campus, at Microsoft, and they were like, Sanderson says, I got this crazy idea. We can write C# code in the browser, blah, blah, blah. What do you think of this? And we have this silly name. We're calling it Blazor. I don't know, whatever his presentation was. And we all cheered. We all said, oh my God, this is what we've been waiting for, right? We've been begging for this. Now, interestingly, along the way, I got better at JavaScript and more comfortable with JavaScript, and TypeScript came out, and all these things. And so there's a lot of progress in the JavaScript space, but still, I always wanted this, Blazor thing. I always wanted this. Mm-hmm. And, quite frankly, I'm in a position right now where I get to decide at my company what we're allowed to do, what we're allowed to use, right? I don't get to decide what we're allowed to do exactly, right? But someone says, hey, what frameworks are we allowed to use? I have say in that. And, for a while, people have been saying, well, what about Blazor? And I kind of hedged off a little bit, honestly, right? Because I'm like, well, let's see how it goes. Let's see how people start, what's the enterprise story with Blazor? How's it working out for people?
Yep.
And, from things we've talked about on this show, from talking to other people, I've recently said, I think it's time that we start using Blazor, right? Now, I don't claim that I'm some guru that like, well, guys, Andy says it's time to start using Blazor. I don't know, but it's, I want to sort of dive into it a little bit more, get used to it, understand it in and out, and have, developers on the teams that I work with start using Blazor. I think what really excites me most about it is, and I think this was the idea, is that the learning curve is so much shorter. Depending on where, of course, it depends on where you're coming from. If you're an experienced React developer or an experienced, Angular or something like that, right? I don't necessarily know that you need to go and switch to use Blazor. Mm-hmm. Right. You can't. It doesn't matter to me, right? Mm-hmm. But if you're an experienced MVC developer, right, and you're used to using, those kind of syntaxes. If you're familiar with Rails already, if you're good at C# and you're not good at JavaScript, right, that's what this is for. It's like, wow. And quite frankly, my experience with the quote enterprise developer, the quote Microsoft enterprise developer, is that a lot of them are not really fans of JavaScript. Many are, not offending anybody. I'm not saying you can't be or shouldn't be. But many of those developers just still don't like the word JavaScript, right? And Rich is raising his hand there, right? And so I think,
having spent the last week working on a project that was all JavaScript, yeah,
right.
I'm done.
And that's interesting too. And I kind of want you to mention that because that sounds actually kind of cool to me. Okay. But I think, this is the story for Blazor. This is what it's all about, right? And even if you use Blazor Server or Blazor WebAssembly, the stories I had heard were like, wow, I get started, I get up to speed so quickly. I have something to show for it quickly.
Right.
And I'm really intrigued by that. And I it's what I've been asking for. So it's time for me to start using it. And I've done a little bit of it. I would say I'm past Hello World, but I wouldn't say that I'm that I can come to you and say, wow, had a team of 6 people working on this thing for 4 months. We've got 400 screens, and I don't have that.
Yeah. You know exactly where and how to break down things into components. What's too small, what's too big, because that's what I feel is like the next step. Is figuring out just how to break things down. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Right.
Now, how much have you played with Blazor? And by the way, if anyone on chat has used Blazor, share your thoughts, share your successes or failures. We kind of want to know. But Chris, go ahead. Yeah.
Well, not much more, right? So like I've played some with React and Vue, and when Blazor was first kind of showed, I said, hey, this brings that component-based model, which we don't have in ASP.NET. We have the MVC model, which quite frankly was probably a response to something like a Ruby on Rails was popular at the time. Mm-hmm. And then we have the Razor Pages model, which Razor Pages was kind of a response to, man, don't you remember the good old days where you just started writing code? And I think, there's a lot of developers out there that have learned React and Vue or are learning it. And so they're already thinking in that component model of breaking down their site or their application. It doesn't have to be a website, especially because we know that these other platforms have native, and Blazor has Blazor desktop hosting and mobile hosting that's all coming. So it's interesting because I think if you are in the .NET ecosystem, C#, and you're already experienced with Razor, it's not a very big jump. And I just wouldn't worry about the hosting of it. Like that's the least important part of it. It's the application framework. When you use the application framework, the day-to-day coding experience doesn't speak to how it's delivered, whether it's Blazor Server like you mentioned or Blazor WebAssembly. It doesn't speak to that. That's just that's just how it's delivered. And I think the one thing that obviously because it was important, Blazor gets associated with WebAssembly a lot, and it's like the least important part of it. It's not unimportant.
Well, yeah, right. That's a bit of a stretch.
Experience, and it's important. But
yeah, it's important, but it's not all that it's about, right? And I think you kind of clued me in on that, earlier in the show, some months ago, where I thought, well, what's the Blazor server is no big deal. Like WebAssembly is what we want to do, and you're like, no. And I thought you made a good point. Then it's like, I started to see the value. I'm like, okay, that is interesting. That is interesting. And well, anyway, so what happened? So I decided I want to do this. I want to make this app. I want to start using Blazor. And I thought, well, I want to stream, and I would love to do some live coding and figure this out. And I got to build this app. Like I sort of had, so I decided I'm going to build this thing for work. So it's a real application. I actually went to my boss. I'm not the boss. I'm kind of senior, right? But I have a boss. I say, hey, how would you feel about me like building this on the stream? Now the thing I'm building doesn't have any like intellectual property to it. It's nothing monumental for our business. It's just a line of business type of thing, if you want to call it that. Okay. And he's like, yeah, you could build that on a stream. And he said, but then one of the things we talked about, and I've said this on my stream, is that when it's done, I'm going to take it. It's in a Git repo now. I'm going to take it out of the Git repo and move it into our internal repo, where I will rename certain things and do some things we need to do, but most of it will get built out in public, right? But because it's a real app, it's not just a hello world application. So right, I'm going to be using OIDC authentication, right? I'm going to be hosting it in Azure. I'm going to be using Git and GitHub Actions. I'm going to be doing unit testing. Like, this has to be a real application. And I like to talk about architecture and design and stuff like that. And so those are the things that excite me these days. And so I'm doing all of that at the same time. And it's been fun. And, getting back into some live coding has been fun. It's definitely, it's a little bit of a challenge finding time, but I'm trying to make a concerted effort to do some live coding. And the Blazor stuff has gone well. I almost forgot about certain things. I'm like, oh yeah, CSS. Blazor uses CSS. So that's cool. Like at first I'm like, oh, how do I style this thing? I'm like, do I need some components or something? I'm like, oh, right. I'm just going to go in and change the style. At one point I honestly said, I had these two elements, right? And they were displaying, one above the other. And I'm like, oh God, in Blazor, how do you align things to be next to each other? And I looked at it for a second. I'm like, well, why don't I just put, I had something in a div. I'm like, no wonder it's breaking. It's a div. And I took the div away and it went side by side. I'm like, it's HTML. That's what's cool about Blazor. I don't have that much to learn. I just have to remember. I almost was trying to learn too much. I was trying to think there has to be a Blazor way to do this. I'm like, there's no Blazor way to do this. It's HTML, right? So there's a lot of cool stuff to Blazor, and so far I'm digging it.
Yeah. So Tim Corey's a friend of the show, right?
Mm-hmm.
We have a Tim Corey interview, I believe, and somebody in the chat. Let me see if I can. I'm not sure how feature chat. But who cares? That's what we're here. Let's try it. Let's see what feature chat thinks about this big chat. It'll pop up, right?
Yeah, Loca's here, right? Hello, Loca. Yeah.
I want to focus on
to call Loca.
Oh, okay. I was focusing on the last sentences. We would use Blazor server side before we can use WebAssembly. And I think if you're interested in knowing more about that, then I would take a look at this video here, this is going to end up in the chat right now. Tim Corey spoke at the stpete.net user group virtually in August, and he makes a case. The point of this talk is he makes the case for Blazor server, and speaks to what he thinks the positives are. In fact, I think I don't want to put words in his mouth, but I'm pretty sure he starts off by saying I like it better. And he basically spends the time talking about what it is he likes about programming using Blazor, coding using Blazor, but going with the server-side hosting. I just suggest to anybody who wants to make that consideration, take a look at the video. It's great to see all sides of this. And Tim, I mean, what a timcorey.com. Like he says right there in his background, the easier path to developer. I don't know what the next line is. I'm sure it's happiness or something. And I feel bad that I just ruined Tim's whatever. The easier path to developer. I'm sure it's really good. Tim's great. He's been to Philly.net. He's been on the set with us. Really good teacher. Excellent teacher.
Yeah. He's been at Tech Back as well, right?
Maybe.
I'm not sure. I think maybe, but I'm honestly not positive about that. Okay. And if you say he was, I would believe you, honestly. It's hard to remember.
I'm going to go look. I'm pretty sure we don't have a video of it.
I'll be embarrassed if he was there. But Chris, I think this was the point you had made some months ago. It's you're not doing full page refreshes, right? You're sending so little data back and forth to the server. And so then you're letting the server do the heavy lifting as opposed to the client. And there are issues that come along with anytime you're on a client side framework, right? Anytime talk about authentication or secrets and things like that you have to be, when you're on the server, that stuff is much more protected and stuff like that. So it's interesting. I think that, I think there could be a good case made there. And I think both of those things are going to progress, right? Like as WebAssembly gets faster and faster and smaller, some of those potentially negatives would maybe, be mitigated, right? So yeah, I don't know. It's interesting, but I'm starting off with Blazor Server in my particular example. What's this question here?
So I thought this was an interesting comment. It would be huge if I could compile C# to WASM and avoid the runtime. And I wonder, and listen, I'm going to say this as someone who does not work on the C# language, does not work on the C# runtime. And I think that even originally C# 1.0 was intended to not be tightly attached to the .NET runtime. For example, I remember Eric Lippert, who was kind of famous for being somebody who really worked hard on the spec and everything, saying things like the fact that structs are allocated on the stack and classes, reference types are allocated on the heap is a implementation detail. You should not rely on that behavior. Well, it's been 20 years now. We rely on that behavior. Like, we rely on that. And not only do we rely on it, the runtime itself does now. We have value task now, which relies on the fact that it's a struct to not allocate. So it's in the
that ship has sailed.
The language is in the runtime. Like, it's not, we're not back when he wrote that, which was a very fine thing to say. Like, I get what he was saying. We're past that. So I almost feel like I appreciate what TryGoofy is saying, but I wonder if that ship has sailed, and that if you want to compile to WASM, you have to run in a .NET-like runtime, or you're not C#. And hey, there's pros and cons to that statement. That's not, it's just, that's why we have other languages that hopefully will compile to WASM, maybe? I don't know. I'm just saying, I thought that was an interesting statement, and I appreciated it, but then I got to thinking, how do you detach the runtime from the language when the language now has features like value task, which specifically say to the world, I am a value-based task that does not allocate? I mean, I suppose that doesn't necessarily, I don't know. It's hard.
Mm-hmm. Oh boy, I have to point out here, Rich just sent me a snippet on our back channel here, showing me that in TechBash 2019, sure enough, our friend Tim Corey was there, getting started with Docker. I helped run the conference, but
there's even a video.
We go to other events and things like that, and Philly.net stuff locally, and so it's hard to remember where people are. But Rich, good memory, and I stand corrected.
No, it's true. I mean, you never know.
You're showing the video.
Tim may or may not have made an appearance at TechBash at one time.
It's possible he wasn't there.
Yeah.
I mean, that could be super. Like, did you Photoshop that just to make me look bad?
We green screen that. Yeah. There you go.
Green screen that in. Yeah.
I'm sure we're off to the side too, right? Aren't we off to the left?
Yeah.
Just
by the way,
left.
Jason Gaylord and I, right before TechBash, like that time, we drove off to these like stores. We had this idea, like, let's decorate the stage, because we used to watch like that conference and stuff, and they had this like elaborate stage set up. So we're like, and these guys have like this budget, they probably spent like $20,000 on their stage. So Jason Gaylord and I are like, all right, how much money? I got like $50, whatever, let's see what we can buy. And we went out, we bought all this like hay bales and stuff like that. I'm sorry to say, you're talking about Tim Corey's great presentation, and I'm thinking about how much fun I had with Jason buying this stuff and setting up the stage.
You're talking about the background. Yeah.
All this funny stuff we put out there. Yeah. It was actually fun, and that was like, we were kind of proud of it for like I don't know, I wouldn't call myself a designer, but I think we put together like a little set that had there's more to it than that, I think, off to one of the other sides. And anyway.
And remember how us amateurs had to figure out how to get the lighting so that like Tim or any speaker's shadow wouldn't be splashed right on the TechBash backing. Because at first, none of us noticed, because I think when you're live, you don't notice those things. But then you watch it on video and you're like, oh my gosh, there's the speaker, and then there is a shadow, like Peter Pan shadow is right there with the speaker. So yeah, there is.
By the way, it's worth pointing out that Tech Bash is back this year, and
Nice.
yeah, I think we're really. I'm generally confident about it. I'm a little concerned, quite frankly, right, about will people come, whether it be for COVID reasons, for budgetary reasons. You know, it's been a tough year for a lot of companies and things like that. Some companies still have travel restrictions in place and all that. But here we are. We're trying to make this thing happen for October 19th to 22nd. Techbash.com. Hopefully Rich and Chris will be there helping out as they were in the past. You know, you guys have been super helpful. We've had a really good time at that conference with great speakers, great content, and what we really, you know, focus on there is the community experience. You know, like example is we don't have a speaker room. There's no place where the speakers, you know, go off and hide and hang out by themselves. The speakers hang out with everybody else, you know. And we have that great big lounge with the couches and everybody hangs out, and great networking and collaboration and things like that. And it's fun. And I did see a comment in the chat asking if any of us have been to Code Mash. You know, Tech Bash is you know, clearly a ripoff to some degree of Code Mash. Like, you know, that's not like a secret. We're like, wow, that's really cool what they're doing. Let's see if we can do something like that on the East Coast. And we're still like you know, 1/100th of the size of Code Mash and all like that. But you know, there's a lot of great conferences. I would love to know what people are thinking about. Honestly, it's an interesting question, you know, that I wasn't thinking about asking today. But like, are people thinking about getting back out? And yeah, you don't have to come to Tech Bash, but are people thinking about getting back out and doing in-person events? Look, there's some socialization. That's cool. That's a cool pick, right? That might be Devin Rader with his back to us. Look at that.
The game night is pretty cool,
Rader.
right?
Yeah, game night. Yeah.
All these games stacked up here, and yeah.
But that's well, all right. So I understand CTI Geek, Tech Bash might not be good for you in October. Fine. Like, I'm not trying to, but you're not missing Code. There you go. Not missing Code Mash 2022. You're ready to go. Your CTI Geek is ready to get out there. Now the question is, see, that's 2022, and I think there's a symbolic thing. I think a lot of companies will look at that date and say, we're not having travel, we're worried about stuff still in 2021, but that magic number of shifting one day into 2022, I think is a big deal, like for a company, you know, when they make like policy. What do you think? You know what I'm saying?
I don't know. I don't know. Sure. I wish I had a better answer for you there, but I suppose that there could be a lot of. Well, I wonder if there's going to be a little bit of pullback of like, wow. So I feel like it can go one of two ways. One could be the stingy, like, wow, we were just as effective without a training budget or without a travel budget. And then there's the other saying like, yes, we know we saved some money, but we can see that we lost growth and innovation by not attending workshops, attending any kind of training. I think that unfortunately, like things always are, there will be two minds of it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And while we didn't go to training, a lot of the training that we would have gone to was virtual for those that did happen. Then the downside of that is, right, when you go to a conference and you travel to a conference, you're kind of there. Whereas when you do it virtually, you're, you know, it's like doing something anything in the office, right? There's always those distractions that pull you away from all good intentions of being there and wanting to watch the 3 days of virtual content.
Yeah. I've had a lot of trouble with them. So just, you know, the different conferences that I've attended like virtually, having to travel somewhere, sure, there is a burden maybe on like the household or something similar, but in the evening, when a lot of people will say the evening is when the networking happens, and when you meet a lot of other people, get to know even speakers or get to know just other folks, I've seen virtual conferences attempt to recreate that, and they're kind of lightly attended because it's really hard to just skip out on dinner and everything. In fact, I'm not even sure you want to, right? Like you almost want to get up from your chair and say, well, let me just go have dinner with the family, even if your family was like, no, go ahead, you're at the conference. If they were super supportive, do you still really want to keep sitting in that chair? And I will tell you that I've skipped out on all of that stuff, and it's not because I didn't want to hang out with the people. I just didn't do it.
Right.
Now, I'll play the devil's advocate here. Obviously, I'm a fan of an in-person event, right? I help run one. But not everybody can go to the in-person event.
Yeah, that's true.
For numerous reasons, right? And there's a lot of good content in these virtual conferences. My feeling, though, like if I'm going to attempt to do an all-day virtual conference, I feel like I can get really good focus for 1 or 2 sessions, right? But then I'm distracted, right? I can lock myself in for 1 or 2. And those 2 sessions might be really valuable to me. Like, that's great. Speakers are putting out a lot of hard work. It's hard delivering this stuff. But there's people that couldn't go to an in-person event for whether money or travel or for whatever reason, right? So I think, you sort of have to have different expectations. I mean, my feeling would be it's great to do some virtual events throughout the year and then, immerse yourself in like an in-person event where you can really take it in and the networking and the conversations. Because what you lose on those in-person events is that hallway track. You lose the ability to catch up with people and talk. Hey, what'd you think? Oh, you know what? And then, just, imagining it's the 3 of us at a thing, and, we could walk out and Rich might say, I got what I was thinking about. Here's a twist on that. And I'd be like, oh, Rich, that's a great idea. Like, I didn't even consider that, but we're having that conversation in the hallway. And that's important to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And that's why I pulled the comment there from Try Goofy around networking and that ability to do that there versus how difficult it is to do virtually. And some places have tried, right? There are sessions where I know there are sessions that we've been doing at Build and Ignite that were, hey, almost like an Ask the Experts, and limit the number of people who are there and have those people there focus on, hey, it's going to be interactive. Bring your stories, bring your content, bring your thoughts around whatever it is this conversation we're having, as well as trying to do something with the community and get people on there in an event. So I think we've had to try different things because we couldn't do that hallway conversation. And I think it will be a balance. I don't think we're going to lose one over the other.
Yeah. Well, and I think so everything is absolutely correct that going to the conference and everything said about the networking. But I do believe that we shouldn't just, I hope that we, and I say we like the royal we, all of us, in the whole entire developer community from, I don't care what platform you're on, that we don't give up, because it's certainly more inclusive to say somebody who doesn't have the means to travel, the means to take time off, maybe they're new to the field, maybe they're just getting their feet wet with some coding in Notepad, or not even Notepad, they've got their Mac or their iPad, I don't know, it doesn't matter. That there is an inclusivity that we can obtain with delivering stuff virtually. I think that's definitely the rise in people learning on YouTube. It's just a fact. It's just what people are learning. So I get it, but I also understand that there is a certain privilege to being able to go to a tech bash and say like, hey, I'm here in the room with these really smart people, and hopefully we can bring that experience to more people, because we need a lot of people in this industry. We have a lot of open recs.
There is. And, having that ability to open this up to more and more people, but also, other people for diversity and inclusion, right? Other people, because you bring different backgrounds, you bring different experiences. It's not just kind of the I've seen some of a panel like this. Microsoft's done at Build, where they basically, like you said, it's limited to even as small as 20 people, and it might be something about like getting started with Python or something like that. And you think, wow, this conference might virtually be attended by thousands of folks, and you're saying
let's get a small group together in a room. And that's a great thing.
Yeah.
I don't know, hopefully I can tell that Microsoft with Build, that team and whoever is part of it is experimenting with it, and that's good.
Yeah. I think that's, the way I went to Build, I think my first Build, well, back when it was PDC, it was like 2008. And I went as often as I could get my whatever employer I was working for to pay for it to get me out there. And, it wasn't a cheap conference. But now all of that content, all of that experience is, available essentially in a virtual format. And I've been seeing the comments in the chat there. Yeah, there are some limitations to virtual, but if you think about just straight content and what you're getting access to, it's not like being there, but we're trying to make it as close as possible. That's for sure.
So, if you were going to an event, or even if you're going to attending at a virtual event, what's the new thing that you're looking for? What's the session that you want to sit in on? Is there something that you're, think that this is where we want to spend time?
What's the session I want to sit in on? That's interesting. I think that I'm very interested now, at least pretty recently. So I'm sorry, I can't help. I just found
the chat.
I just found this. This is Bill Gates and Microsoft announcing .NET to the world at PDC 2000. And kind of going back to the inclusiveness thing, I was in the audience in Orlando.
Try Goofy says Try Goofy was there.
It was in Orlando.
And Halcyon's. Yeah.
I promise it was in Orlando because I was there. And this was a surprise to the audience, what they were announcing. So what a moment to be in that audience and getting a jump start. You got to go home with the bits on a CD.
Yeah.
What a jump start compared to now. Hey, it's great now. I love now that now they can announce something at Build and then, hey, go download it. Visual Studio Community, free. Go get it. Knock yourself out. Boom. That's great.
Yeah.
But you're right that
at the hotel.
Yeah. You're right that well, yeah, that's right. That was the other thing is that then the PDCs where they didn't give you CDs but you had to go download it in your hotel room. PDC did often go to LA at the and I think maybe the next one might have been there or maybe when they released .NET in 2002. But I just thought it was funny, Bill Gates on the stage, and let me tell you, when he comes on, the flashbulbs go off. Flashbulbs, because that's what it was then. It was people's flashes with their cameras. They weren't using their iPads. They weren't using phones. It was cameras, and they might not have even been digital cameras. But that's certainly what it was.
What I think is funny about this picture. And by the way, so if anyone's just listening, some people do treat this as like a podcast and just listen.
Yeah.
Chris put up a picture of a slide that's got a lot of green, but the fonts and the boxes. Oh, hang on. Yeah.
I'll head back to it if I can. What was that?
Anyway. Yeah. Is it? I didn't realize it was a video.
It was a video. I was hoping to. He's showing off .NET. Look, they're showing off ASP Plus. They didn't call it ASP.NET yet. And Internet Explorer 5.5 available right now. I think Bill Gates said something like, as I click this slide, Internet Explorer, I'm pretty sure that he said that. So in any case, I'm sorry that I lost what you were talking about with the font there.
I was just saying that, I can't imagine, Microsoft, it just seems shocking that even in those days, somebody from Microsoft would have looked at that slide and said, yeah, this is the style.
Great.
This is the PowerPoint deck that we want to go live with, by Bill Gates. It was kind of cheesy looking, let's face it, right? But maybe that's the best we had in those days. I don't remember.
Yeah, it kind of was. And it was 21 years ago.
Yeah, it's just funny to think about, some of the way styles have changed and stuff like that. But what would Rich? We were talking. I guess I'm wondering, is there something you're interested in? We had a quick chat, we were talking about topics for this week and stuff like that. And Rich, you mentioned or maybe I even mentioned I don't know who started like Power Platform and stuff like that. Yeah. We're talking like maybe like digging into that on this show one of these days, right? But that's something I think I would like to see some presentations on, is like Power Platform. There's typically, that's the kind of thing I don't like, if I'm being honest, right? Typically Andy goes, no. What is low code, no code? I'm a developer, right? Like, I don't go for this low code, no code stuff. It's like sort of going in the wrong direction. Mm-hmm. But I gotta say, some of the stuff I've seen here is really impressive. Like the things you can do, the way you can, combine things to build real workflows and applications and stuff like that. And the security models and the way it's locked down now is really like, citizen developer is like is like a new version of citizen developer, I think, with some of these things. And I'd like to see more of it. I don't know if other people agree with that.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a conversation we want to have here. And I think as that citizen developer moniker, right? I mean, yes, part of it is the business knows what they want, and there are applications that the IT group can't get to. So this is a chance for them to kind of do something because they need it, but it doesn't, it's not a full-on enterprise level application, right? So if you've got some people who've got some good skill and know how to do like macros in Excel, that's enough to get in there and build out some cool Power Apps. Where I think some of the and where things are going after that is, well, why can't developers use that as a rapid prototyping tool? Maybe it's enough to get them an application because I don't need to do all of the CRUD stuff that we do all the time, right? It's just kind of in the box. Maybe I don't have something that needs to take advantage of some of the higher end features that we might do in a language. And it's just enough to wire these things up, do the configuration, and put it out there. But that's part of the story. And I think the story that's coming along too is, well, I'm a developer, right? When I write code, where do I put that code? Well, I put it in some kind of source repository. And when I get code that gets checked in, I want it to go through that CI/CD pipeline because I want it to get to all the other environments. So those things are, you can do that now with Power Platform Solutions and have it go through GitHub or Azure DevOps. Really? Yes.
Really?
Yeah, that capability exists now.
So that I didn't know. That's the piece that sort of, to me, was still missing, right?
Yeah, and that's
that ability to do like sort of the code review of the thing, because I think what you said about developers using it for you mentioned for quick prototypes and things like that. I think it's beyond that. I gotta say, and I'm sure you do too. But I think it's beyond that. Like, I'm looking at doing some stuff with some cognitive services stuff and some machine language. Like the stuff I'm looking at is there's a thing called Forms Recognizer, which is an Azure service and things like that for getting data off of PDFs and forms and things like that. There's a lot you can do with it. It's really cool stuff. Some of the way they're saying to do it now, like as a first class citizen, is like do that in Power Platform. And I was really surprised because I've done it this sort of manual way. And I was like really impressed when I went to do it in Power Platform, and I'm thinking, well, I could build an app here. Like, this is pretty good. And I don't do it justice to explain anything about Power Platform, but I would appreciate us digging in on some of this Power Platform. And I see Chris is scrolling through some of this Power Platform stuff. I mean, the stuff you can do in here is it's impressive. Like the set of tools that you can sort of drag and drop and use and configure.
There's you mentioned the form recognizer. I mean, I'll be honest, the only way I've done form recognizer is through the Power Platform, just because it makes it that easy to identify the fields on the form. If it doesn't quite get it right, you have the ability to outline a box of information you want and tag what that information is and write it to whatever backend store that's sitting in. So yeah, definitely Power Platform is where I would start if I was doing a form recognizing project. And there's an awesome tutorial in there. I'll find the link for it. But it really steps you through, even providing you sample documents. So you really can't mess this up.
It's a pretty doable, if anyone's interested in that, just the concept of like, how do I get data from forms? This is so doable in today's world that we're at. I mean, OCR has been around a long time, but this is a little bit different than OCR because this is using a bit more of a machine learning model. Well, not a bit more. It's using a machine learning model to accomplish those things. But these kind of things are within reach, right? And the funny thing is, I've been doing Forms Recognizer since before it was available in the Power Platform. And I don't mean like so much doing it, but I've been playing with that software for a while, and so I had wrote an email or posted somewhere, well, what about another? Is there a different UI? This UI that I'm using is kind of, and they're like, oh no, don't use that. We're in the Power Platform now. And I'm like, oh, cool. I think Power Platform, like I think a good use case for that is also like, again, where you want to start to, inject other cognitive services probably into some sort of workflow. I think it's a cool way to just tie things in and say, and RPA kind of stuff, right? Like any of that kind of stuff is good in there too, right?
Yeah, the whole RPA engine is, and the capabilities you have in there, there's a whole other part of the Power Platform that supports that, right? So you can install an agent on a machine and let it go ahead and run through the Power or the RPA steps to get information out of the the applications that's running on some other kind of an OS essentially.
And as I turn my head, I'm looking over at the chat, like while we're talking about all this like we're talking about like machine learning and Azure Cognitive Services, and I look over and all I see catches my eye is a TRS-80, and I'm like, what's going on in the chat? These guys love the conversation you guys are having here, and yeah, that's funny. It's like how we're talking about like we're at like bookends here, and that's great because that's we're just having fun, right? So Rich, yeah, we should see if we can put some stuff together. Power Platform. I would really like to hear from like our audience, what do they think about this? And also like, so our audience tends to be developers, right? Not everybody, but tends to be developers. Right. And what do they think? Like, is this something that like they would use? They're developers. Like, am I wrong? I think so. Maybe they would go, nah, that's good for the other people. Like, I like writing. I want to get my code game on, right? And there's nothing wrong with doing that. Anything you can do through these things, you could write an app to do also, right? But what's the model you want to take? It goes back to what we said before. There's more than one way to do something, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And even though as we move in that direction, and if you're going to say, hey, we're going to start everything in Power Apps because we've done this, and this, and it's repeatable, and we've got some great things there. There are still activities that require that deeper level of development around. So Power Apps being, a way of, one example is you've got to get data that sits in some back-end service, right? Your line of business application data. Well, you still need your developers to support our API layer across our business and exposing that out the appropriate way securely so that people on the Power App side or the Power Platform side can consume that data. So there's always going to be that need for the developer to build out those kind of, if you want to write code, you've got that ability to do that. And as we saw from some of the API things that Chris showed at the beginning here, it's you get to write less code even, but you still own the code. But I think those are things that we're still going to have the capabilities to do. So if nothing else, there's still that. But I think as the Power Platform starts to move from not only doing that low code piece, but also starting to continue to refine those integrations on the DevOps side of things, it's going to become another tool in the belt for your developer staff as well.
My back around, I guess it was around the holidays, we were having like a virtual holiday party. I think this is when this was from, and some part of the company said, hey, we want to do this raffles, all these prizes that we have to give out, and we want to raffle them off. And everybody's got a certain number of raffle tickets that they can put in, and what can IT do? Like, it was one of these things like, well, we need this in like 3 days or something, like, what can you guys do to give us a way to like collect this kind of data? And there's a bunch of ways we could have probably done it. I was talking about, maybe we'll use, what do they call the forms on, it's Office 365 forms, I guess, right?
Yeah.
That was one way. Some other people was, well, we could throw together a quick website for it. And my boss, who's like the CTO, right? I think he went home one night, it was like an evening. He's like, I've been hearing about all this power stuff. Let me see if I can. And he whipped together this basically web application that had the pictures and the things, and it had some basic logic. It wasn't styled like amazing, but it didn't need to be. Right. And I thought, like, that was interesting. Like, he built an application that doesn't need to be bulletproof, right? It's not going out to the world. He needed it for we're going to use it for one day. Everyone's going to go and use this thing, and then we're like throwing it away or something like that, And it was, and he afterwards, he's like, Andy, you got to get in and try this. You're gonna be impressed. He goes, it's like, look what I just did, and I'm like, that's pretty cool. Would I want to build that? Would I want to use that technology for a production ready like web app? Like, no, I don't think that's what they're. I don't know if that's what it was for. At least the way he did it. But man, it was perfect for what we needed. Seems interesting.
That's definitely the use case for it. I think maybe if we hang in there, we're always looking for topics. This might be something, maybe we do something after build, kind of plan it for around that time frame. That'd be a good conversation to have around there too.
Yeah. I'm hoping that very soon we have a database show that's about when to use what type of database when. Or what data belongs in what type of database. I think it'll happen. I just have to nudge somebody who is not here on screen. So
I was going to say, it's none of us.
Yeah, no, it's not one of us. I know who it is. I won't.
I think it's good because it's inspired a little bit by a book that we'll definitely talk about. I think called like 7 Databases in 7 Weeks or something like that. And the idea is, you learn about these different types, and I haven't read it. I really should, so that I can be a little bit better of a host when we have this awesome guest. So,
I think it's a really good. That's a really cool topic. I think one of the things, and I think I learned a lot of this from Rich actually. Is Rich looks like, what? You learned something from me. In thinking about Azure in particular, is like, well, you could use Azure SQL, but should you use Azure SQL? Like, Azure offers other ways to do these things. Like, we have these options now. It's no longer, and there's been options for a while now, by the way, but there's even more options now. But it used to be, if you got data, you're putting it into SQL, a SQL database. It doesn't have to be Microsoft SQL Server, but something like that. Oracle. What's that?
Relational database. Yeah, that's what I was trying to say.
And then document databases started coming out, and that's an interesting space, and I think there's some great use cases there. But then you get into Azure, and you have like, not everything needs a database. Maybe you just put it into table storage. Maybe there's so many options. There's Cosmos DB. Halcyon says MongoDB. There's so many choices, and what I try to encourage developers in my organization to do is, like, it doesn't have to be a cookie cutter thing. We have certain family of things. It gets hard from a maintenance perspective to just go completely off the reservation, right? But should I not say that? By the way, is that not politically correct? I'm sorry. Off the reservation, is that one of those?
That old saying.
I don't know.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying.
If it is, I apologize. As I said it, I'm like, oh, is that one of those? So I'm owning it. Like I'm saying, if that was wrong, let me know. What was I saying? Oh, so we don't want to just do things. I mean, some of it's just straight up about cost. Like, what's the most cost-effective way? What's the most performant way? What's the right way to build this app? It's the golden hammer, right?
Right.
We shouldn't treat SQL database, it shouldn't be the golden hammer. And so, Chris, I think a show like this would be really cool to talk
Yeah.
about like good use cases. I think
Yeah.
I think that there's a really good conversation we can have there.
Yeah, I agree, and I think it's not like we don't, like you said, it's not like we haven't had those various different ways of doing it, but it's much easier to spin up one of those when we start thinking about putting those in the cloud. And I could have, it doesn't all have to be relational or NoSQL or any of the ways that Try Goofy is mentioned in the chat post there. But the idea is that I might have data that lives in one stage at some portion of my app, but in a different phase for another portion of my app. And it's okay now that we can do cloud architectures to have that data live in a couple of different formats potentially.
Yeah.
And with that, I guess.
Yeah, actually, I agree with. There's something that we totally skipped earlier. I think it was queued up, right? When we were talking about what types of sessions do you like to see at conferences?
Yeah, that's the
one. Did we
one.
ever come back to this? Because I thought it was a great comment too. When CTI Geek said, "I like large architectural topics when at a conference. I could just watch YouTube to learn how to use a product or a feature or a version." I mean, it's not wrong.
No.
So.
And is it?
Well, I think different people are going to have a different answer to that, right?
Sure. Oh, absolutely.
It's not a one size fits all. CTI Geek, I don't know where you are in your career or how it fits into you, right? But there's different things for different people. I tend to agree. Like I was thinking when I saw that comment a while back ago, is that like, a demo, a product feature version type of demo that you're saying you could watch on YouTube? Those aren't opinionated things, I guess. And maybe that's not the right word, but it's like, this is how you do it. When you get into architectural things, there's options, there's choices, there's flavors, there's opinions on that, right? And maybe those are why you're relying on like an expert speaker to come in and, the questions might shape the whole thing. And like there, you can really get into like a discussion, or maybe it's not a discussion format. I don't know, but it seems like, is that I wonder what makes that large architectural topic interesting for you at a conference.
Yeah, and I mean, just to expand that, I think architecture is part of it, but I think part of it is the presentation. If you think about the videos, I absolutely agree, right? If you're being presented on a topic, you could get that from a video. If I'm going to a conference, not only do I want that hallway conversation, I want that conversation in my presentations. Maybe it's a panel, maybe it's a different way of, not doing slides. Maybe it's whiteboarding. Maybe we just all sit, I think if we're going to show value about being in person at a conference, we've got to provide that value as speakers and not just run a PowerPoint deck on somebody or run a couple demos up there.
I don't mean to speak for him, but I wonder if part of what he's saying is it's an opportunity to interact either with the speaker or other people in the room who can. Here's an opportunity to commiserate on this topic.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Rich, what you bring up is really interesting, I think, as a conference organizer, as a speaker. We talked earlier, a lot of conversations about virtual versus in-person, right? And so much is available virtually now. So much is available on YouTube or Pluralsight, great platforms like that. Love them all, right?
Twitch, the whole bit.
But now, like what you're saying is, well, if you're going to be in person, then it should be something different. Like I can watch the video if we're just gonna put up the slide deck and talk and a talking head, I can watch the video. So how do we turn those in-person events and make them more engaging? And what's the value add? How about that? Right? What's the value add that I should pay and come out? And well, one of the value adds is meet and greet and talk to the speakers, ask questions, right? But how can that presentation be different? And I will say this, like you got me thinking about like when I do presentations, it's really hard to do it differently.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But I think there's a big opportunity there.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that's, Bill did it how many years ago with CodeCamp, right? Say no to slides, just show the code, right?
Well, that was the
this
motto.
Is that next version of that.
that was the motto of Code Camp, right? Was lots of code, say no to slides, and I'm not sure that it's always easy to adhere to that. Yeah. So I will tell you, oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, you could also take like the AMA kind of approach, or the what's it called? Oh God, I'm blanking out. I hate when I do this on a show. It's kind of like the agile version of a talk where you say, well, let's get some topics and let's.
That unplugged, the infamous Scott Guthrie unplugged.
Well, no, I'm thinking like, what was it? Oh, open spaces. Sorry. That's
okay. Open space. Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
Like a slightly different thing where you say, let's pick a topic, and you could sort of do that with a live audience. If you're an expert in a topic and you really know your stuff. I mean, you could say, all right, listen, I'm here to talk about ASP.NET. Let's throw out some questions, and maybe we'll pick 3 of them, and I'll do a presentation on those 3. I'm going to do this on the fly. That would be pretty impressive. Now that's hard to do. It's risky, and it could go badly, I guess. But I don't know. There's all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you got to move, out of the comfort zone and perform without a net. Sometimes.
Well, those things scare me to death. This is what I was going to say: is if there's a pattern to the talks that I give, they tend to be about things where, I'm not saying this is on purpose, but they tend to be about things where literally nobody else has any idea what I'm talking about. Like if I started off with XNA, there wasn't anyone else at Philly.NET Code Camp who knew anything about XNA. And if they had a half decent interest in game programming, I could at least answer their questions. Like they might say, like, well, why do games run this way? It's, well, it turns out all games have an update. All games have the game loop. They all do. And then there's a reason why for that. And I feel very comfortable in that scenario. I found the same thing with Git, the same thing with SignalR, the same thing with just a lot of the things I've picked over the years. There was a time when I got some mileage for a while out of a talk about how to properly store passwords, because there was a time when we did that. I know we should not do it anymore. Just about none of us. I can't think of any of us should be storing passwords in our applications. We should be doing it, but whatever. I don't want to get into that battle. But there was a time when we had to do it, and there was a right way, which was not encrypting it and not storing it in plain text. Dear heavens, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I hate to say it, but it was like this. Well, it's certainly an imposter syndrome, and saying like, look, I know I'm going to be the expert on this topic, so I'm comfortable that I won't get a question I can't answer, and that's not correct, by the way. Many years ago. I mean, gosh, I was brand new to this, and Miguel Castro told me, like, don't be afraid of that. He said, like, I'm not. If somebody asks me a question I don't know the answer to, that's great. Someone else in the room might know, or it's an opportunity for you or that person to go find out and then blog about it or post about it and keep the conversation going.
Yeah.
And I still struggle with that. So, I think that's good. If anybody's here watching tonight and you're new to this industry and you say, man, how will I ever get as confident as like the people talking right now? I want to tell you that it's not what you think. It's not how it works. So be confident.
15 minutes before the show.
Yeah.
15 minutes before the show, we're all like, well, nobody wants to hear what I have to say. I don't know, but we just start talking, and I think some people have stuck around, right? So I think this is a fun show. And, Rich, you asked it earlier. I think it was you who asked in the chat, like, what do people think about this? We didn't really have a hardcore topic for tonight. We had some idea, let's talk about what's interesting and stuff like that. We've noticed, honestly, that the code-heavy demo shows actually don't seem to do quite as well as the ones where we're talking. Usually it's a little bit more of a specific topic or something like that, right? But the quote talking shows tend to go over well. We get a lot of questions. I mean, I think all of them.
Unless it was
Ancient
F sharp.
Thanks.
Or gRPC, because man.
Oh wow.
I think we just hit that gRPC topic when it was fresh in people's minds, because people must have been searching for intro to gRPC, and maybe we were the first folks playing with it after Philly.NET one night. So
So you know what? Let's hang on that topic for a second, if you guys don't mind. We talked about gRPC. You showed it to me, and to all of us, and I thought, like, this is cool. This is cool. Now, I don't write a lot of, I've already said that. Like, I don't get that much time to do this kind of stuff, but I haven't put any other time into gRPC, nor, at least in the .NET space, the developers that I talk to, I don't hear it like as the thing. Mm-hmm. But it kind of looks like it should be the thing. Like I was like, wow, this is pretty good. Where's that going, do you think? How's that catching on? Do we have any information anecdotally or whatever? Like, are people using that?
So I think there are still people in this world who miss WCF and the tooling and the configuration, and there's people who even miss SOAP. And I know this is all heresy, but there's something about the strong typed nature of these things, and the flexibility in that configuration. And the problem maybe, and gosh, I hate saying this because it would be so easy, we could have a whole show about this. The problem with web-based APIs is it's the wild, wild west, right? You design it, and I hope it's a good design. And if it's not only are you stuck with it, so am I as your customer. But at least gRPC has a contract. That's kind of nice. And there's some client-side generation, which is kind of nice. And so I think that even the folks in the Microsoft developer advocacy space are saying to customers who wish they had that sort of contract-based programming that they missed from WCF and SOAP days. They're like, well, look, gRPC can offer that for you, and we have great support in this space. And your friends in other spaces like Java and Go and so on, they should have great support, so you kind of get what you want. Mm-hmm. But if we talk about why the web was successful, because it was successful because somebody sitting in their room could open up Notepad and publish to GeoCities, and it worked. It worked.
Yeah.
And web APIs, you can open up Postman and I can tinker with your web API, and then I can go write a little code in the language that I love, and it works.
Yep.
And how do we get away from that?
Yeah.
Right?
Yep. And I know Rich was thinking both those times you said open up Notepad, and then you said Postman. And I know Rich is thinking, you can do both those things in VS Code.
Yeah, sure, you can. Absolutely. There's a .NET tool there's a .NET tool to hit HTTP APIs now, right? And it's great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But you just think about like the vast majority of people in this world that say, hey, I want to learn to use the Twitter API. Well, I don't need anything more than my favorite IDE and then a tool to tinker with the API. And that's amazing.
Exactly. Curl, as they're talking about in the chat, right?
Yeah, it's curl, right?
So, but gRPC, did seem pretty cool. But I don't know. I think we sort of like, we got to go in waves, right? And I think that like the sort of, for lack of a better term, we say this on the show, like the restful way, it just seems to be the easy way to nowadays do things, we're like in that mode now.
Yeah, and don't. I think restful way, yes, but don't. That's just the protocol, right? That's just the way of making the communication. Once you talk to that service has to run in a way that's performant for the work that it is doing. Sometimes that's gRPC, sometimes that's Go, maybe it's PHP, right?
Yeah.
You have that flexibility because of the way APIs work to use the language that makes the most sense for what it is you're trying to surface up for data.
Mm-hmm. It's true. Yeah, it's good.
It's funny how things come around. I had the conversation about why web APIs, right? And I truly think it's because it's so easy. And it doesn't mean that that we can't hurt ourselves badly.
Oh, sure.
Half the reason why I think web APIs exist is because if you recall those days when we were trying to write B2B services, it involved figuring out the protocol with our third-party partner, whoever we were working with, probably having a meeting with the firewall team on both sides, networking team on both sides, change requests going back and forth, and then trying to figure out which side's change request was done or not done. Was it your firewall change or my firewall change? And then eventually what happened is some bright person at some company figured out, hey, you know what port is open everywhere now? 80. Like, it's open everywhere. Everyone's got it open. The whole world. So here's what we'll do, Andy. You
Both
work at
ways.
company B and I work at company A. So why don't you build a website that just sends me some stuff, and then and that'll be our service. We don't need any of this nonsense. We don't need the change controls, the network team. They're all gone. And I'm
Right.
telling you, that's why we have web APIs.
Yeah, I think there's something in there, and like you're right, because it's just there. It's like ready to go, ready to go.
Scare 'em and all that, but yeah.
It's really scary
out of the mix.
that's how it started, and that we did this over HTTP and crossed our fingers.
Mhm.
but
Seems to have done okay.
yeah, but we made it. We're still here.
Exactly.
So maybe on that note, so everybody, the theme of the show,
Wrap it up.
the theme of the show is programming has gotten easy, and we all can hurt ourselves really badly. But
Don't
it's
say
fun.
easy. Nobody likes that word these days.
Well, I guess what I mean is,
I know.
you know what I mean? The barrier to entry that was the thing. The barrier to entry to learning HTML, CSS, JavaScript was doing nothing more than opening a text editor. That was the barrier to entry. And there were the other environments of the day were not that way. I don't even know if the environments of today are that way. And the barrier to entry to a web API is, let me get it on a server somewhere and you call it.
Mm-hmm.
And so maybe instead of the word easy, to your point, you're right. The what I mean is just no obstructions. Go
Right.
to it, But there's a reason why we have rules of the road, and maybe sometimes those obstructions aren't such a horrible thing, but whatever.
You guys see Ross the Lips here?
Yeah. Security through obscurity. It's absolutely
We got a
true.
lot of cool people joining the chat tonight.
Yeah.
It's like a party here. We should have cocktails or something. Although I don't know what time it is, where some people might be watching it, and it doesn't matter to me. But try Goofy. You guys aren't drinking, so I don't know if so that joke could be interpreted two ways. That could be like, I'm drinking, why aren't you? Or the way
Can't
you guys
you tell
are
the
babbling, we
conversation?
just assumed that the three of you guys were drinking. Like maybe. Ancient Coder, right? Oh my God, 3:15, 7:15. Oh my God. Oy. It's first time I'm not.
All around the map there.
Yeah, it's cool, right? So, what do you think? Should we? Are we running out of stuff to say?
Oh, I
You
think
guys have
so.
any more topics you want to?
I
Unless
have.
Rich wants to tell us. I will say this: I could hang for a couple more minutes if Rich wants to talk about what he's been working on. Or does that take
I
like a
would-
screen share? Or is that like too complicated?
Is it a PowerPoint?
I would say let's because I think it could be a good discussion. Why don't we tee that up for next week?
All right.
Okay.
All right.
You want to
And
give a teaser?
So, did I lose what I was going for here? Yeah, here we go. So, yeah, don't forget, the Dev Talk Show is on Twitter, twitter.com/the Dev Talk Show. And whether or not you're watching on YouTube right now or in the future, youtube.com/the Dev Talk Show for all of these old videos, including the one that we're creating right now, Developer Chat Live. Let us know what you think. Subscribe to the channel. You know all the things they say on YouTube, right? Subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, hit the thumbs up if you like this video. Tell your friends to join us live. Hopefully you had fun. And next Wednesday we'll be back with more discussion. So
Yeah.
Andy, now we
fun.
go to Andy for the witty repartee and leave thing, right?
I wasn't sure. Like I was thinking, do you have it automated enough where you want to just take us out? Yeah, we we talk on the show. There's not that many secrets, but yeah, I will say one thing on the way out. I'll say, hey, don't forget that I'm streaming or trying to stream, different times throughout the week, and you could follow me on twitch.tv Schwami Streams or youtube.com Schwami Streams or at Schwami, my Twitter handle where I plug about that. And I don't know if you guys are doing any streaming, but we all like to see different things. And Chris is doing something that we're seeing on the. Oh, you're showing me. Yeah. Well, I'm not wearing the same shirt at least.
I'm just proving it's real. This really happens. Schwami Streams.
It's back. Yeah, Schwami Streams is back, and I'm kind of excited about that. Work got really crazy though. As soon as I started streaming, like the second day, things kind of like blew up a little at work, and I'm like, oh my god, what am I doing streaming? But it's fun. So tune in for that, but mostly tune in for us Wednesday nights. If it's Wednesday night at 8:30 p.m. Eastern, Eastern U.S. time, that's where you'll find us here talking about whatever we're going to talk about. We try to tweet about it and get the topics out there. But we really appreciate people giving us some time, hanging out with us, whether it's now or in the future or watching this on YouTube. Thanks for being with us. Thanks for supporting with comments and things like that. And if you have suggestions, topic ideas, post them in the comments. We do listen. We do respond to these things. And we really appreciate it. So I'm going to say for all of us, thanks so much. And we look forward to seeing you next week on the Dev Talk Show.